The town of Hobsonville held its secrets close, whispering them on the wind that howled through the valley. None were as potent, as chilling, as the story of Clark House Mansion. Looming at the edge of town, a monument to a bygone era, the mansion stood as a decaying testament to tragedy and obsession. It had once been home to the renowned artisan Mr. Clark, a man whose skill in crafting exquisite pottery was only surpassed by the darkness that seemed to cling to him like a shroud. The truth, like the shattered remnants of a once prized vase, lay scattered amidst the whispers and speculation. The townsfolk, their memories blurred by time and fear, spoke of strange occurrences at the edge of town. Lights flickered in the dead of night, emanating from the house that stood shrouded in darkness. Unexplained sounds, a muffled scream, the shattering of glass, sent shivers down their spines. It was this chilling legacy that drew a group of friends to the house one crisp autumn night. A dare whispered amongst teenagers, emboldened by youthful bravado and fueled by the intoxicating lure of the unknown, set in motion a chain of events that would forever alter their destinies. Fleur, the fearless leader, thrived on the adrenaline rush of pushing boundaries. Together, they would step across the threshold of Clark House and into the heart of a mystery that had haunted Hobsonville for generations. A veil of mist hung low over Hobsonville, shrouding the town in an ethereal silence as the group of friends approached the rusted iron gates of Clark House.
All right, let's do this.
Fleur, ever the daredevil, pushed the gates open with a loud clang that shattered the stillness.
Guys, I'm not so sure about this.
Jeff, his heart pounding, hesitated at the edge of the property, his gaze drawn to the looming silhouette of the mansion.
This is it, guys. This is where we'll find the proof.
The front door, its once grand facade now blistered and peeling, creaked open with a groan that seemed to echo the house's mournful sigh.
All right, let's get this over with. Stay close, everyone.
Fleur, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, led the way, her footsteps echoing on the marble floor.
I don't like this. Something feels off.
Amanda, her EMF reader buzzing erratically, documented their every move, her whispered pronouncements echoing in the silence. They reached the grand staircase, its once ornate banister now splintered and covered in a thick layer of dust.
Wow, look at this. It's beautiful but eerie.
Fleur, captivated by the intricate detail of the mural, ran her hand over the smooth, cold surface.
There's something about her eyes. It's like she's watching us.
Amanda, her gaze fixed on the woman's hands, noticed a detail that sent a chill down her spine. As they ventured deeper into the mansion, each room they encountered seemed to amplify the unsettling atmosphere.
I can almost hear voices, laughter, crying. It's like the walls are alive.
Jeff, his unease growing, imagined the countless tragedies that must have unfolded within those walls.
This energy, it's unlike anything I've ever felt. It's overwhelming.
Fleur, determined to maintain her facade of fearlessness, masked her growing unease with forced laughter. A narrow, creaking staircase, shrouded in an unnatural darkness, beckoned them downwards.
Maybe we should head back. It's getting late and this place is giving me the creeps.
Fleur, her bravado wavering, shot him a look that was equal parts annoyance and relief.
Come on, guys. This is where it gets interesting. The basement is where Mr. Clark had his workshop.
Grant, his usual swagger replaced by a nervous energy, followed close behind Amanda, his gaze darting from side to side. The basement, shrouded in an almost tangible darkness, was a labyrinth of forgotten memories and decaying dreams. Jeff, his flashlight beam cutting through the gloom, stumbled over a pile of discarded pottery shards. In the center of the room, looming like a silent sentinel, stood a massive kiln, its once gleaming surface now dull and rusted.
Guys, something is definitely here. The energy here is off the charts.
Fleur, her bravado finally crumbling, felt a shiver run down her spine as she stared at the blood-stained kiln. Panic seized Jeff, a scream rising in his throat but strangled by sheer terror. His flashlight beam wavered, illuminating a small porcelain doll on the floor. The doll's eyes sent shivers down Jeff's spine.
Guys, we need to get out of here now.
He stumbled back, instinct telling him to get away. The heavy wooden door swung shut, its ancient lock clicking into place.
It's locked. We're locked in.
Fleur rattled the doorknob, her face pale and streaked with tears.
No signal. There's no signal down here.
They were trapped in Clark House with no way to call for help.
Help! Somebody help us!
Grant slammed his fist against the door, his voice a roar of frustration and fear. His cries were swallowed by the thick silence of the basement. A chill wind, carrying the scent of damp earth and something sickly sweet, swept through the basement, extinguishing their flashlights and plunging them into an oppressive darkness that pulsed with unseen energy. Jeff, his heart pounding against his ribs, stumbled back against the rough stone wall, his breath catching in his throat as he imagined unseen eyes watching them from the shadows.
What is that?
It's her, Amanda breathed, her voice barely a whisper. The woman from the mural, she's here.
The EMF reader in Amanda's hand buzzed erratically, its needle swinging wildly, as if responding to the unseen presence. Jeff, paralyzed with fear, closed his eyes, trying to block out the sound of the lullaby, the feeling of unseen eyes on him, the certainty that something terrible was about to happen. He had heard the stories, whispered by the firelight, of souls trapped between worlds, their anguish echoing through the years, seeking solace, or perhaps revenge. Grant, his skepticism forgotten in the face of the unexplainable, felt a cold sweat break out on his skin. He had always prided himself on his rationality, his ability to explain away the supernatural, but there was no denying the palpable sense of dread that had settled over him, the chilling certainty that they had stumbled into something ancient and evil. The lullaby reached a crescendo, the mournful notes echoing through the basement, seeming to vibrate the very air they breathed. Then, as quickly as it had begun, it stopped, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Jeff, his senses on high alert, could hear his own pulse pounding in his ears. Driven by a primal urge to escape, Jeff frantically scanned the room, his flashlight beam dancing over the dusty furniture.
There, we might be able to get out that way.
His gaze fell on a small boarded-up window at the far end of the basement. If they could just break the window, squeeze through the opening, they might escape.
Stand back.
Fleur grabbed a rusted metal pipe, its cold surface slick in her trembling hands. With a strength born of desperation, she swung the pipe at the boarded-up window.
We have to hurry, she gasped. I don't think we're alone down here.
Grant joined them, his shoulder slamming against the boarded-up window. The wood creaked and groaned, but held firm. And then, from the shadows behind them, a cold, disembodied voice whispered,
Leave my house.
The disembodied voice, laced with an icy fury, spurred them into a frenzy of desperate action. Jeff, adrenaline surging, slammed his shoulder against the weakened boards, the sound of splintering wood a symphony of hope. The boards finally gave way, showering them with splinters and dust. A blast of cold, damp air swept into the basement, carrying the scent of rain and decay.
Go, go, go!
Jeff scrambled through the narrow opening, landing awkwardly on the muddy ground outside, gasping for breath. He turned back to help the others, his outstretched hand a lifeline in the darkness. Fleur scrambled through the window, landing heavily beside Jeff. Her eyes urged him onward, away from the oppressive presence in the house. Amanda, clutching her EMF reader, hesitated at the edge of the opening. The needle on the reader spun wildly, warning of unseen danger.
Amanda, come on.
Grant's voice broke through her fear. He grabbed her hand, pulling her through the window.
We can't help her if we're trapped too.
He said, his voice barely a whisper, his gaze fixed on the dark maw of the basement window. They fled through the driving rain, their lungs burning, their legs screaming for respite. But the memory of the cold, disembodied voice, the chilling touch of unseen eyes, spurred them onward. They finally collapsed, gasping for breath, beneath the skeletal branches of a weeping willow, its branches swaying rhythmically in the wind, as if mourning their plight.
We have to get out of here. We have to get help.
But even as she spoke, she knew the futility of her words. Who would believe their story, their tale of a phantom lullaby, a blood-stained kiln, a house that seemed to breathe with malevolent life?
I think we're safe for now.
Amanda's voice trembled slightly as she clutched her EMF reader like a talisman. The needle had finally stopped spinning, the digital readout flickering erratically before settling into a steady hum. The air, though still heavy with unseen energy, felt somehow lighter. The oppressive presence that had followed them from the basement receding into the storm-tossed night.
We can't stay out here in the open. If we can just find a way back inside, find a room with a lock, we can barricade ourselves in until morning.
Jeff, his chest heaving, pointed towards the looming silhouette of Clark House, its windows like vacant eyes, watching their every move.
He's right, we need shelter, even if it's in that godforsaken house.
Grant, his face pale and drawn, his usual bravado replaced by a bone-deep weariness, nodded in agreement. And so, with a shared sense of dread and a flicker of desperate hope, they turned back towards the house that had become their prison, their only refuge from the storm that raged around them. They crept back into the house through a broken window, their movements furtive, their senses on high alert. The air hung heavy and still, thick with the scent of damp plaster and something ancient and unsettling. They made their way cautiously through the darkened hallways, their footsteps echoing in the oppressive silence.
I think the attic is our best bet. It's the highest point in the house.
They climbed the creaking stairs to the attic, their hearts pounding in unison with each step. The attic door creaked open, revealing a cavernous space filled with shadows and dust. As their flashlight beams swept across the room, they gasped in unison. In the center of the room stood the woman from the mural. Her porcelain skin gleamed eerily in the faint light, her eyes burning with a cold, malevolent fire. And in her hands, she held a shard of broken pottery, its edges sharp and unforgiving. "You should not have come here. This house is mine. And now you will pay the price for your trespass," said the ghost in eerily tone. As the first rays of dawn pierced through the grimy windows of Clark House, a heavy silence hung in the air, thick with the weight of unseen events. The storm had passed, leaving in its wake a world washed clean and eerily still. The only sound that dared to break the silence was the gentle chirping of birds, their cheerful melody a stark contrast to the horrors that had unfolded within the mansion's walls. Outside, the town of Hobsonville slowly stirred to life, oblivious to the tragedy that had befallen the group of friends who had dared to venture into the heart of its darkest legend. The sun, rising over the distant hills, cast long shadows across the overgrown lawns of Clark House, its once grand facade now a haunting reminder of the secrets it held. Inside, dust motes danced in the faint light that filtered through the broken windows, illuminating a scene of chaos and decay. Furniture lay overturned, shattered remnants of a desperate struggle. The air hung heavy and still, thick with the scent of damp plaster and something else, something cold and metallic that lingered long after the storm had passed. But the friends were gone. Only their belongings remained, scattered across the dusty floor like fallen leaves, a poignant testament to their interrupted lives. A backpack lay open, its contents spilled across the floor, textbooks and notebooks bearing witness to dreams cut tragically short. A single shoe, its mate nowhere to be found, rested against a wall, a silent reminder of the frantic flight that had ended so abruptly. And on the wall where the grand ceramic mural had once depicted Mr. Clark and his enigmatic mistress, a chilling transformation had taken place. New faces, contorted in expressions of terror and despair, had been added to the tableau, their features frozen in a silent scream that echoed through the empty house. Fleur, Jeff, Amanda, Grant. Their youthful faces, once filled with life and laughter, now stared out from the cold ceramic surface, their eyes wide with a horror that transcended death. They had become part of the house's grim legacy, their souls bound to the spirits that roamed its halls, their stories forever intertwined with the legend of Clark House. The collection had grown, and the whispers on the wind seemed to carry a new note, a chilling harmony of anguish and despair. The guardian of Clark House, her thirst for vengeance seemingly insatiable, watched over her grim collection, her porcelain gaze fixed on the world outside, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to cross her threshold. The story is for entertainment purpose only. Or is it?